Alright, let's do a graph with a phase shift in it. So here we're looking at y equals 2 times the sine of x minus pi over 3. Remember, this is the form that I'm teaching y'all. So these are my transformations. These are the coefficients that affect the graph. And we've already talked about the period and the amplitude. A is my amplitude. My period is, for sine and cosine, it's 2 pi over b. What we haven't talked about is the phase shift. So the notes I gave you in a previous video, the phase shift is c over b. Alright, so let's do this. Let's do amplitude. We already talked about that. We know it's the absolute value. So my amplitude of this graph is 2. We know that my period is 2 pi over b, which b in this case is 1. So my period for this graph is 2 pi, or 360 degrees, your preference. Okay, now phase shift. We've got a phase shift going on because we have a c value. Alright, so my phase shift is going to equal c over b, and that would just be like if you were solving that for x. What would x be? Well, x, if you added pi over 3, x would equal pi over 3, and that's exactly what that is. It's going to be pi over 3 over 1, or pi over 3, or we could say 60 degrees. Alright, so the easiest way to graph these, once you've got that going on, we're still going to go back to our 5 points, but instead of starting at 0 and going through the end of our period, now I'm going to start at my phase shift. Alright, so if I start at my phase shift, which is 60 degrees, because I'm shifting positive, so I'm shifting to the right 60 degrees. My period is still 2 pi, but where's that going to end? Well, that's going to be 360 plus 60, or 420. Or if you wanted to go back to your divide that by 4 and add 90. So I would add 90 to that, add 90 to that, add 90 to that, add 90 to that. Okay, so there are my 5 points. Alright, now my values aren't going to change. Alright, if I plug in 60 degrees here, I get the sine of 60 minus 60, which is 0. The sine of 0 is 0 times 2, still 0. My zeros aren't going to change. My 1, if I put in 150 here, I do 150 minus 60. Well, that's 90 degrees. The sine of 90 degrees is 1 times 2. That's 2. You should be seeing a pattern now. Alright, these numbers are not going to change if I am setting up my starting point, my phase shift, and my period, my end point. If I'm using my 5 points and using that correctly, these values are not going to change other than multiplying by whatever my amplitude is. Alright, so when I've got that, I've got those values right there. So I'm starting at pi over 3, or 60 degrees, however you want to do it. I'm going to 420, right? And I've got 240, I've got 150, I've got 330. Alright, so I'm labeling that. I'm going up to 2, down to negative 2. I'm starting at 0, up to 2, back down to 0, down to negative 2, and then back up to 0. And that's what that graph looks like. So the key to this is going to be, when you have a phase shift, you're not really doing anything different. Still get your 5 points. Start at your phase shift. Alright, start at your phase shift and then add a fourth of your period to get your 5 points, and then just keep practicing these so you'll pick up on these patterns.